Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Eisen. Sorry, we're redoing that. Joanne Ewing. I'm still getting used to this with Reach the Unlimited. I have to check and see how many I do right and do wrong because I'm not paying attention usually. Anyway, I am so happy to have Sandra Copperdew with us today. I know that you're going to learn a lot from her, and we had an amazing conversation before the show, and I think that you're really going to enjoy having her on the show as our guest. Sandra, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. And we did have a really great conversation before you hit the live button. Um, I am a classical homeopath. I live in Wisconsin, and I have kind of a meandering story on how I got to this point. Um, I am a mother of two boys who aren't, they're young men now.
Mhm.
And um, when my youngest was around the six age, we got a lot of information from the daycare and then from school with some concerns about his attention and his interactions with other kids and wanting us to get him tested for ADHD. And so we took him to our pediatrician and did all the testing, and he was diagnosed with ADHD. And at the time, the only solution that we were told was to put him on medication. And so we went the medication route because that's what we knew.
Mhm.
And it was a decision that really never sat well with me
Mhm.
because I just didn't understand really what was happening.
Mhm.
And prior to becoming a homeopath, my previous career was in engineering. I was a civil engineer for 27 years. So I very much have that problem solving
Yeah.
mind.
Mhm.
And fast forward a couple years, the medication worked, but there were side effects,
Mhm.
and we didn't like the side effects that we saw. So it just kicked in my innate, I have to fix this. I have to figure out and what's going on. And that took me down a rabbit hole of researching and investigating natural modalities and therapies and different ways to treat kids, my son specifically, with ADHD. And I came across homeopathy.
Mhm.
Never heard of it, never did know anything about it. And we started working with a local homeopath when he was probably around 9 years old. And it was life changing.
Mhm.
It was absolutely life changing. And my whole family started to work with this classical homeopath.
Mhm.
And I just completely was gripped with wanting to know more and seeing the healing and the change that happened to him, seeing the healing and change that happened in me
Mhm.
as a client. And I would take every opportunity to learn. She would host little classes and workshops, and I could not get enough of it. And it was a little bit later on in 2017, and there was a notification for homeopathy school enrolling. And I remember thinking, oh, I missed my chance. I could have, I would have loved to have done that,
Mhm.
and with some encouragement, from my husband and my friends of, what do you mean you missed your chance? But in my mind, I'm thinking, I've got kids that are going to college. I can't go
Yeah.
back to school. And but I decided, well, I need to pursue this. I need to pursue this. This is a modality
Mhm.
that people need to know about because it is so profound and it is so life changing. Um,
So, first of all, let's say hi to our friend Melanie.
I know.
And second of all, for those that don't know what homeopathy is, tell people what that actually is.
Homeopathy is its own system of natural medicine, and it is based upon the principles of like treating like.
Mhm.
So, homeo meaning same, similar, pathos, which is pathology, disease. So homeopathy is based upon the principles, like I said, like, treat, like.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are working with a homeopathic practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
the symptoms and expressions that you are having, not only on your physical, your mental, your emotional states, a homeopath is seeking to understand that at the deepest level. And
Mm-hmm.
then we're matching a homeopathic medicine to that that has the same picture. Whereas when we think about conventional
Mm-hmm.
medicine, prescription drugs, over the counter, those chemical based, those are producing an opposite effect
Mm-hmm.
of whatever it is that we're expressing, which on one hand makes a lot of sense. It's,
Mm-hmm.
I have this pain, I want this pain to stop.
Right.
So I'm going to go take something that is going to force the pain to stop.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't get to the underlying reason or the underlying core of what caused it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So in homeopathy, we look at all of the symptoms and expressions that you have as the language of your body, of your vital force, of saying, this is where I need help, and this is what I need.
That's really, I want to take ADHD as the main topic because so many people deal with that. I mean, I can't believe how many people I talk to, even as adults, are realizing now at whatever age they are that I have this or I grew up with this and it was undiagnosed or whatever. And of course, when I was young, it was like, just go to the chalkboard and do what you needed to do. It doesn't matter whatever was going on in your brain or your system or your body.
Right.
You just need to do this. But a lot of people have a lot of angst, like you did, about putting their children on Ritalin or some kind of what you called it as a sedative, something that's actually making them more lethargic and like not really in touch with who they are or living their lives. How would you proceed with someone that would have that particular issue?
As a homeopath,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
well, when someone comes to meet with you, and something like ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, irritable bowel, allergies, those are more chronic. That's like a chronic state.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're working with a homeopath, that's going to be what we call a constitutional care.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone is going to come and work, their main focus may be ADHD, maybe depression, maybe symptoms from those types of conditions. But homeopathy looks at the whole of the person.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would want to know is, well, how is this for you? When, let's just use the example of ADHD, and someone, may come in and say, I have a hard time concentrating. I can't focus. I can't sit still. And I would ask, well, tell me, what is that like? You say that you can't sit still. What does that feel like in your body? Because we want to get down to the specific details of what is uniquely that person.
Mm-hmm.
One person might say, it feels like I have electricity running through my whole body.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else might just say, I have a numbness and my legs keep going numb. And so I have to keep moving. I have to keep moving. I just have to keep moving because I have numbness. I'm just using these as examples.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But those are very different types of sensations. Those are very different experience from that person. So it's through that consultation and that line of questioning of, what is this like for you? What makes it better? What makes it worse? And even if someone is coming to me for one specific thing, we're going to talk about everything we possibly can about that person within a 2-hour consultation. I want to know about your sleep, your energy, your mood. How would you have described yourself as a kid? What do you have? Do you have any concerns with your digestion? Are you more cold? Are you more hot? How do you sleep? How is your sleep? Do you even dream or do you not? Do you have recurring dreams?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of foods are you adverse to?
Mm-hmm.
All of these things are uniquely yours, and they're going to help paint a deeper understanding of you as a whole. And that's the information that a homeopath is going to use to match to a remedy to help get to your deepest state.
Absolutely. Um, I guess you know them. Vivian and Melanie
Oh,
are
oh,
talking.
I can't see
Okay.
anybody.
Oh, if you go to the right, just hit the comments and then you should be able to see the comments.
Oh, there's everybody.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we were talking about before the show was how people have this adverse reaction to actually cleaning their diets up or cleaning their life up. Or, I mean, none of us like to go into the hard work and the change that has to happen because a lot of us have developed bad habits through our life. How do you help somebody through that process? Because I'm sure that's also a process or part of your process too, as you just stated, the healing.
Right. Well, I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't advise on a more clinical and nutritional
Mhm,
level. But just in the consultation and working with
mhm,
someone, you get to see people's patterns, you get to
mhm,
see people's coping mechanisms. So, from a homeopathic perspective, it's the way that I may ask a question. You
mhm,
know, you've told me that you get stomach pains that are sharp and last for 3 hours every time that you eat cheese. Why do you keep eating cheese? What is it about eating cheese that makes you feel good, that makes you want to do that? Like, what is it that you choose that over this?
mhm,
And not in a very non-judgmental way, because you're the one eating the cheese, having the pain, but I need to understand what's behind that. What is it about that why you choose this over that? And
mhm,
by sitting with someone and just asking those types of questions, it creates the space and allows a self-awareness to come forward with a lot of people, myself included, when I worked with my own homeopath. When someone asks you those questions, like the
mhm,
why behind you do something, or what is it that feels good about eating cheese?
mhm.
Oh, it reminds me of my grandma, because every time I would go to my grandma's house, she'd always have Havarti cheese, and it made me feel loved. It made me feel secure. Oh, well,
Mhm.
tell me more about that. And many times when you're having a consultation and you can see the self-awareness come to the surface with people,
Yeah.
it's they're doing the work. They're
Mhm,
doing work. You're just asking those gentle prodding questions. And that then helps me deepen my understanding of you
mhm,
so that I can see where is the central of your case? Where is it that you are needing support
mhm.
so that you can live your healthiest, freest, fullest life?
So for somebody who we're just going to stay on this ADHD subject, so it's easier to not bounce around. But you did well on not bouncing around, but involving all the other parts to that. But in that particular case, when you're working with someone, how long would it usually take, or is that something that somebody may have to stay on for life? Whatever protocol that you would give to that person, how does that work usually for you?
Well, and it's actually very individual. But
Hmm.
for something like that, especially if you're working with kids,
Hmm.
you you are likely going to be working with a homeopath for a longer period of time,
Hmm.
because, again, like I said, you may be coming for ADHD, but suddenly, as you're talking, oh, I have digestive issues, oh, I have
Hmm.
anxiety about this, oh, I have
Hmm.
anxiety about that. And so, again, I'm looking at the whole of the person
Hmm.
and recommending a remedy. And then, so when you have a consultation, and the initial consultation's 2 hours long,
Hmm.
and then I will recommend a remedy. We refer to them as remedies and not medicines. And then you'll take the remedy. And then usually we wait 4 to 6 weeks.
Hmm.
And because we want to wait to see how the person has responded to the remedy. And
Exactly.
you don't take, most times you don't take the remedy every single day. You
Mhm.
take a few doses of the remedy and then you stop, because the goal of the remedy is to stimulate your own vital force so that
Mhm.
you can get, it can get you back in balance and not have a substance be applied to you every single day that's doing the work.
So going back to the like creates like. So if you're giving somebody something that would create this particular situation, how do you preempt, or would somebody need to worry about having an exasperated maybe situation to that? How does that work?
Homeopathic medicines, remedies,
Hmm.
they're made from from
Hmm.
natural substances, but they go through a very specific process that makes them into a homeopathic remedy, through a dilution and a
Hmm.
succussion,
Hmm.
so that you are taking a material substance and bringing it to a level where it is very gentle to your system. It isn't the hard material substance. So how a person responds, is going to be we don't, you don't know how a person's going to respond for sure. But that's anything you take,
Right.
but you aren't giving them a material substance.
Hmm.
You're giving them something that has been made and diluted down into a
Hmm.
homeopathic substance so it can act on the energetic level of your state.
So one of the things, because one of the things that I always try to tell people is that even though it's a more watered down, or it's not as potent as the actual herb itself, it's because it's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be firing your system, not causing you to heal from something, or like you would take a medicine to, as we were talking earlier, stop, right, the system. So I really wanted people to understand that when you're giving somebody a remedy, that you're very much in the knowledge of how this is working. Because when you talk about remedies, and people might get a little bit nervous about what does that mean, and what is that
Absolutely.
really going to do for me or to me.
Absolutely. And a great example that a lot of people, a lot of homeopaths,
Mhm.
give, to kind of understand this concept is, when you think of like a red onion, so
Mhm.
there's your material substance. You think of a
Mhm.
red onion, and not for everybody, but for a lot of people, if you start cutting into a red onion,
Mhm.
a lot of people, myself included, I have a physical response. My eyes start to water, my eyes start to itch and burn, my nose starts to run. I'm having this
Yeah.
physical response to this raw substance.
Mhm.
There is a homeopathic remedy called Allium cepa that is made from the red onion, but it goes through a specific process of succussion and dilution to get
Mhm.
it down to the homeopathic remedy. That remedy is very, very commonly used for if someone is having symptoms that are similar to seasonal allergies or some
Mhm.
other state of burny, watery, itchy eyes,
Mhm.
runny nose, scratchy throat. So if someone is experiencing those symptoms for whatever reason, whatever the cause is,
Mhm.
the causation isn't as much of an issue. That particular remedy is the match. And so that is what we would prescribe in most cases.
Edward, that's what I was trying to preempt, is witchcraft. It's not witchcraft. If you think about it, aromatherapy is the opposite. Aromatherapy is taking something and making it magnified. This is like you're making it 10 times the potency of what it was. Like taking Splenda or stevia, which is sugar, and you've now made that 1,000 times more potent than
Right.
sugar, where homeopathy would be the opposite. But it really is working on a more subtle level. It's not as dramatic as if you're taking Ritalin. That's the most
Right.
common.
Well, which is interesting because so when you think about what Ritalin is a stimulant. right?
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm,
Ritalin is one of those examples of the, Western
mhm.
pharmaceutical medicine that is actually very similar to homeopathy. So Ritalin is a stimulant, right? People will take it to get themselves stimulated
Yeah,
and awake and to do a lot of work. But where do we see Ritalin mostly prescribed? Kids and adults and people who have ADD,
yeah,
ADHD,
yeah.
that hyperactivity, that
Mhm,
that sort of over the top movement, and that their brains are constantly moving. They look like they're on a stimulant, and we're prescribing, and the medical community is prescribing them a stimulant,
mhm.
like treating like, in order for them to be able to come back in balance. So it's very, very interesting that is one of the that you brought up Ritalin, because it is one of the few examples out there of allopathic or
Yeah.
drug-based medicine that really is kind of based on homeopathic principles.
It is actually. I have not had experience with ADHD, ADD really. I probably should have put my son on that when he was younger, but that's another story.
Well,
No,
and
I
that's a
just don't.
diagnosis. Those are like, that's all
Yes,
diagnoses. And
yes,
even within
yes.
some, 10 people who have received a diagnosis, if you were to talk to them
Yeah.
about what it's like to be them, what it's like to be in different
Mhm.
situations, you'll get 10 completely different descriptions.
Now, how many cases of I question this a lot because I've talked to people, especially older people now that are all coming back going, I have whatever that is, ADHD, ADD, whatever they have, right? And I'm thinking, are they over diagnosing this now? Is this like more of a thing that people have because they can't control themselves? Or what are you seeing when it comes to that?
I can't speak about the diagnoses, and who I see in my practice is it's very varied. I see people
Mhm,
with all sorts of different concerns. I have, on a personal level, I know of a lot of people who have talked
mhm,
and said, "Oh, well, my husband just got diagnosed," or "Oh,
mhm,
I got diagnosed last year," or you
mhm,
know, my son at a later date got diagnosed.
mhm.
I don't know what is prompting that, because I'm not in that medical field. So,
No, I'm not asking from that standpoint. What I'm asking from your experience with what the people that you deal with, and I'm curious about this because I've noticed it with people that I've been speaking with, that they literally were just diagnosed with this. And I've never seen this before where so many people are being diagnosed with it. And I'm trying to understand, is this something that has been just like it has been more rapid than we thought? Or is it that the medical community is diagnosing it? Or is there something else that, like, because, we talked earlier about nutrition and how important nutrition
mhm.
is. And um, me even talking about nutrition on this show tends to kind of shy people away. Like, no, I don't want to talk about nutrition. But nutrition is very important to our whole body, to the balance, as you were talking about, right? That homeostasis of our body. And yet, I feel like we as a country are worse than ever when it comes to how we're teaching our children how to eat, even though it's more known than when I was younger. But how much of this is really being maybe brought to the surface now or is over exaggerated because of pharmaceuticals?
Well, and I think a lot of people are struggling. I think a lot of people
Mhm,
have been struggling for a very long time, and
mhm,
you know, and it is becoming, thankfully, it's
mhm,
becoming more and more acceptable and less of a stigma, especially for even adults to go talk
mhm,
to a therapist or a doctor, a nutritionist, just to reach out for help, whatever
mhm,
that help may look like.
mhm,
So I think that maybe there's more people who are reaching out and asking for the help,
mhm,
which then, depending upon where you're looking for that help,
mhm.
that you may then start to see more people, with diagnoses if they're going more of the conventional medical route.
Right.
I do think that it is a good thing that there's more and more people than out there willing to go talk to other people, willing to go,
Edward, we are not trying to be psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors. We're having a conversation about how to help people have a healthier life. It's not about witchcraft. It's not about trying to force beliefs on people. It's about just trying to help people have a healthier lifestyle. That's all we're talking about. This is a conversation. Now, Sandra has actually gone to school and gotten an education on homeopathy. Homeopathy is a real thing. Homeopathy is being able to go to the core, the center of who you are, and use very natural medicines. If you know this or not, medicines are actually made from plants. A lot of them are derivatives of plants. Homeopathy is being able to go in and do it in a way that is more beneficial to your body and not quite as shocking, and it's not addictive. It's a way better way to go if you do that in conjunction with a nutritionist and clean up your diet, as well as see somebody who knows what they're talking about to help you to get through these issues. Then you're going to be a lot healthier than if you go to a doctor and just go on medicine. Now, I'm not saying don't go to a doctor. They're very important, but it's also important to be able to support that with somebody who's going to help you to not continue on that path. And that's what homeopathy is about. That's why there are naturopathic doctors, because there's other alternatives to be able to heal. You don't have to just be a doctor.
And homeopathy has actually been around for 250 years. And it is actually the second largest health modality in the world. In our country alone, we used to have, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, we used to have over 100 homeopathic hospitals. 20% of all of the doctors in the United States were homeopathic physicians. And we had homeopathic colleges. And it was in the 1920s when there was the big push-pull with the pharmaceutical backers and the pharmaceutical companies, and which way do we want our health system to go, that we ended up seeing a big push more towards drug-based diagnoses, allopathic medicine. And the largest donors of and supporters of those colleges at the time, which the names Rockefeller and Carnegie might ring a bell with some people.
Maybe.
They're the ones that really use their influence in Congress, as well as with the American Medical Association, to funnel the money towards the colleges that were just focused on the drug-based medicines. And that's why many doctors don't have the base education in nutrition and also some of the more healthier modalities. It was written out of their curriculum.
Absolutely.
Back then. So there is a deep history of homeopathy, not only in the world, but in our country as well.
And I am very happy that you're here, Eddie. And if you want to contribute, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But if you're not going to be nice, then I'm not going to allow it. So I'm just asking you to be nice. I know that you don't agree with it, and that's fine. We don't all have to agree with everything. But this is an educational program to inform people of other options and the opportunities that they may have in life. So that's what I'm going to say to that. And I'll leave it with that. Sorry, had to get on my soapbox because you're right. Now, I don't say this often, but my son is a doctor. He went through training to be a doctor. And I know what he went through because we talked about it. And nutrition was a snippet. It was like a day of his entire process of being a doctor, which all of us know that the important part of our health and well-being comes from what we put in our mouth. It just is. If you're putting garbage in your mouth, you're going to get garbage out. That's just the way it is.
And I have given lots of talks, especially in our community here, and I think there is a place for all of us. If I have a broken arm, I'm going to go to the brilliant orthopedic surgeon who's going to fix my arm. That's where I'm going. I'm going to that talented, knowledgeable expert who's going to fix my arm, or if I need a knee replaced. But then after that, I'm going to go and look for those modalities that help support
So
the healing of my body. So there is a way to work together
together.
amongst the different modalities. It's not just one
Absolutely.
way or the other. But to understand what is available, what different things do, and how can they best support ourselves.
Thank you, Vivian, for putting that on there. It is very important. This is for entertainment purposes only. Thank you, Eddie, for saying you're being honest. I trust that you were. I just want you to be nice. That's all. Just if you want to voice your opinion, do it, but do it in a nice way. And it's so true, right? If we can all learn to be together, work together, we can all create a healthier world instead of it all being about, like Coca-Cola. They've been about money and they're pushing something that's really unhealthy for all of our bodies. Anybody who thinks that drinking Coca-Cola is a good idea needs to go talk to anybody. I tell you not. I don't know what to say on that one. But that's the whole point, is to, and I feel like a lot of people, like for me, I had asthma really bad when I was younger, older adult, 20s. And I never had asthma before. And all of a sudden I had asthma. And of course, I went on all the different medications for asthma, and I needed that at the time. And I'm not sorry. If you have a medical emergency
Mhm.
or a medical illness, you go to your doctor. But it wasn't solving my problem. And that's what started me on my path. Was I was not solving my problem. It was still there and it was getting worse. I literally, especially this time of year, would be hugging my air cleaner because I couldn't breathe.
Mm.
That was because of so many factors: stress, diet, exercise. All of these things were important. And what I ended up doing was going into my path of learning how to deal with nutrition, and how important that my diet and my exercise and my attitude was just as important to my overall health. And I don't have asthma anymore because I completely changed my lifestyle. I completely changed my views. I can completely change the way I ate. I exercised. That's all we're talking about here, is those kinds of changes.
Mhm. And that's wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that for you.
I just want to say
It's
it's really important to be able to look at these modalities, because they're all very, like acupuncture, it's very important. It helps with making your body work in a better way. I mean, these are homeopathy has been around for many, many years. Like you were saying, it's not something
Mhm.
that came out of, I don't know, the back room somewhere overnight. It's something that has been treated. It's more readily used in other parts of the world than we do here, because we are so used to using our medical team. So back to you. Tell people where would they start, and how would they even begin to find someone who they could trust to work with?
Well, there's different ways that you can work with a homeopath. We've talked about, the constitutional, more of if someone has more of like a chronic type of way of living that they would want to see improvement, if they want to see
Hmm.
that their resiliency
Hmm.
increases and their susceptibility and their just overall well-being improve. That's more that constitutional. There's also what we call an acute. And an acute situation is, those things that happen in life that are just out of the blue. They're not part of our everyday. You wake up with a scratchy throat and runny nose, the broken bone example, that's not my chronic state. I tripped
Yeah.
and fell on the curb and I broke my
Right.
arm, or these are more acute situations. You can work with a homeopath
Hmm.
in order to work you through the healing process of those acute situations. Now, there's a couple different organizations that you can go to online if that have databases
Hmm.
for homeopaths, depending upon where you live. If you wanted to see someone local, a lot of times you can also see a homeopath virtually, like what we're doing right now.
Hmm.
Um, the Natural Center for Homeopathy is a place that if you want to go on their website and you can do a find a homeopath and search by state, search by city. It doesn't cover all of the homeopaths that are available, and depending upon what state that you live in, is going to depend on, you know, what kind, how robust the database might be.
So I need to read this other question with my glasses on, but what is the difference between what a homeopath would do versus a DO would do? A doctor of
Well, doctor of osteopathy.
osteopath. Thank you.
Well, they're medical doctors, so they're going to assess.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
You know, your complaint, utilizing the tools that they've been trained in the medical doctor, you know, profession. So a homeopath is not the same as a doctor of osteopath or even a naturopath. You know, a lot of times I do get a question of what's the difference between a homeopath and a naturopath. You know, a naturopath, they work from a toolbox of different natural modalities. Like you mentioned, acupuncture. Some naturopaths will do acupuncture. They might prescribe some homeopathic remedies. They might do, you know, some nutrition. They have a little bit bigger of a toolbox, you know, to pull from. I'm a classical homeopath. I was trained in classical homeopathy. You know, I went to school for 4 years with clinical training just in classical homeopathy. So that is where my focus is.
Thank you for that question, Pat. So what is the craziest thing that you have helped or treated people with, that you have helped somebody with or treated them for? What is the craziest experience you've had?
The craziest thing.
And you can thank Melanie for that one.
I see that. Oh, I guess I would say, what would you define as crazy? Because
well, what would be the most
you put me on the spot here, Mel.
So what in general, I'm going to take you off the spot. In general, what is the more difficult maybe issues to treat with homeopathy?
Oh, I would say that might just, it takes a little bit longer, are people who have concerns with skin symptoms. And that is because, you know, one of the homeopathic principles is based on, it's called Herring's Law, which is the direction of cure or the direction of healing. And when you are going through a healing response, it happens from the deepest part. So the deepest part of you, the most vulnerable of our organs. So inward out and top to bottom. So when we think about our bodies, like our most vital, precious organs are the ones that are deep within us. You know, our heart, our lungs, you know, our brain, which is surrounded by this hard shell to protect it. You know, those are the most vulnerable pieces of us. Our minds, our emotions, our consciousness, our thinking, you know, those are the most vulnerable. And so those are where you're going to, when you're seeing healing happening on a whole, you're going to see it on those levels first, and then it's going to work its way out. So if someone has issues with some sort of skin symptom, but yet they also have maybe some concerns on the mental, emotional, anxiety, you know, fears, whatever, we're going to want to see the direction of healing happen on those deeper, which is your mental, emotionals, before you're going to see the skin symptoms start to resolve. So that's why I say those are the hardest, because what do we see first in everybody? We see our skin.
Exactly.
We see our skin. We identify health with the way our skin looks. And for a lot of people, that's what, you know, maybe brings them to a doctor or some other therapist, is there's something on their skin that needs help and they want it gone. They want it gone. But if you're working at a deeper level of healing, that might be one of the last things that kind of gets cleared away because other things are being addressed. So it's
Yeah.
a different way of understanding health and healing and the process of healing. And it's just very uncomfortable. It's
Mm-hmm.
very uncomfortable for people because I have this giant rash or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I want it gone, and I want it gone right now.
Exactly. Well, a big one that a lot of people deal with is eczema. And they think I'm just going to put the cream on my eczema and that's going to take care of it because they're not realizing that that's coming from within. It's not, it's a symptom of something that's going wrong inside of you. It's not something you could just put, a cream would just like put a bandage on it and make it calm down for a period of time, but you're not really handling the real issue.
Correct. You're not getting at the core of
Mm-hmm.
what caused that expression. So the cream may make it look better, but you're
Right.
really suppressing what caused it in the first place. And
Exactly.
it's going to come out in another way.
Exactly.
It's going to come out in another way.
So, thank you, Eddie, for being here. We're sorry that you're not in agreement, but thank you for being here. We send you blessings too, honestly. Um, so, eczema, though, is another issue that a lot of people deal with. I want to go back to something you said first, though. One of the things that I've done for a long time is a homeopathic tablet that I take whenever I'm starting to feel sick, like I feel like, oh, I'm getting something. I will take that like crazy before I get it. Most of the time, it knocks it out and I don't
Mm-hmm.
ever get sick. As soon as I start getting that itchy throat or that, the feeling you get when you're getting a cold or something.
Yep.
And every time, most of the time, if I'm really paying attention and I get it in time, I can knock it out with my particular homeopathy tablets that I take. So I'm a big fan of. I've been using it forever and ever and ever. Um, Back to my question with eczema. I know a lot of people deal with eczema. Is there some kind of tips you can give people though with that? Because that is something that's internal.
Um, and that's where working with a homeopath for a
Mhm,
condition like eczema,
mhm,
um, that's going to be a constitutional consultation. Eczema is not, or symptoms expressed by eczema is not an acute, so, if someone wants to really address some symptoms that they might be having, that are from eczema, you know, they have to be prepared to, have a constitutional consultation to look at all the parts of themselves, and kind of look at the whole, because it's not just one piece, it's not just one part, which is the eczema. And this is where homeopathy gets confused a lot of times with holistic.
mhm.
It is
Sure.
holistic, but holistic is this giant umbrella, right?
Mhm,
And underneath that giant umbrella is homeopathy and acupuncture and, nutritional
mhm,
medicine and, maybe even some aromatherapy. And they're all, Chinese medicine, they're all
mhm.
these individual different modalities that fall underneath a holistic umbrella. So from a homeopathic perspective, there's products, over the counter products that
Mhm,
are homeopathic, like
mhm,
creams,
mhm.
like calendula ointments and calendula creams that have homeopathic ingredients in them, that some people have used, for different types of skin ailments.
Mhm.
But homeopathic consultations, homeopathic care is a deeper um, process than just putting on some creams.
You're getting to the root. You're not just putting a bandage on it when you're
Correct.
doing that. The one of the things that you said though is the healing process. Talk to people about what you actually mean by that.
Well, it's the healing process is a that's a great question. How would I describe? When you're, especially as an adult, right? We've all had however many decades of living on this earth. And when we are undergoing homeopathic care or any sort of healing process, you're unearthing different things that we have suppressed, different events, different illnesses that we may have experienced throughout our lifetime that we may not have, you know, gotten a full healing process through, meaning we were affected by it, our bodies respond, and then it's moved on. A lot of times, based on the type of treatment we received, it got suppressed. Our susceptibilities are high for a whole bunch of things. So when you are working with a homeopath and you're going through the healing process, especially as an adult, as you start to see improvement in maybe the area that you came to see a homeopath for, a lot of times you may have symptoms reoccur that you haven't had for 20 years. Like maybe if you had chronic ear infections, these are just an off the cuff example. Maybe if you had chronic ear infections as a young adult or even as a kid, and you are going through homeopathic treatment and homeopathic care, and then suddenly you're having you suddenly are having an ear infection, and you haven't had an ear infection in 25 years. It's your body and vital forces way of being able to bring that forth so that it can get cleared and healed and moved on homeopathically.
So tell people what you're actually talking about when you're saying vital forces.
So your vital force is that life force within you. Some people may refer to it as your chi. We all have a life force, and it's not our soul. That's not what we're talking about. It's the life force that animates us, because without it, we would just be a lump of organic material. We wouldn't be alive. It's the life force, the vital force is what keeps us in homeostasis. It's what triggers our immune system. It's, you get a cut on your hand. You don't have to look at your hand and say, heal. You need to heal now. You don't need to do anything because your vital force has already kicked your body into doing what it's already programmed to do. So the vital force is the level in which homeopathic remedies act, because the vital force is the one that is expressing the symptoms that you are having. So we in homeopathy, we say that symptoms are the language of the vital force. It's telling you, I need help. And it's expressing it in a certain way so that we can then find a remedy that is most similar to help support it so it can get back into homeostasis.
I know one of the things, thank you for that, Melanie, because I agree that must have been a very interesting paper that Pat wrote on aromatherapy. I love aromatherapy, but again, that's another thing that, and I agree with some of what Eddie said, right? We can't take for granted. I mean, there's good and there's bad naturopaths, what am I thinking of? There's good and there's good and bad practitioners out there. Thank you.
Oh.
Slow myself out there, down there. There's good and bad out there, right? And it's like a mediumship. There's good and bad mediums out there, and you have to know what you're doing. And if you feel that this is not working for you, then you need to pay attention to that.
Absolutely.
But aromatherapy is another field like that. You have to know that who you're working with is good, because if you do too much of aromatherapy, you can really injure yourself. I mean, there's a lot of ways that people have burnt themselves, they've injured themselves because they don't understand that that's a potent way of dealing with something. So you really have to be mindful. And I would love to have read your paper on that, Pat, for sure.
And I think that's with any modality. I think that's with anything, anyone you go see. There's people are brilliant.
Yes.
People are brilliant. And to see where their passions have taken them. There's
Mhm.
brilliant doctors out there, and I
Mhm.
brought up, when we first started talking, and, I told you the history of my son. We adored his pediatrician. We worked
Mhm.
wonderfully with his pediatrician all through his life, even
Mhm.
utilizing homeopathy. I have nothing but the utmost respect for his pediatrician. I have the utmost respect for, other people in other modalities. But we all also have the responsibility to advocate for ourselves.
Exactly.
And just because maybe you might have a poor experience with
Mhm.
one person in a certain modality, that's
Mhm.
not a representation of that modality. And that's
Ex
the same with, doctors and dentists and,
mm.
know,
Exactly.
everyone else.
Mhm.
We have a responsibility to advocate for ourselves. And,
Absolutely.
I always say that I'm partnering with you.
Right.
My job and my role is as the homeopath, but it's a partnership.
Mhm.
It's not I'm doing all of this work. It's together. I'm walking with you on your wellness journey.
Mhm. And I love what you said that you worked well with your pediatrician, with your son, because a lot of times people think it has to be one or the other. And that's another good point that Eddie brought up, right? Is that we need both. This isn't about just doing one. Because, like you said, if you have a broken arm, you've got to go to a doctor who can fix that broken arm. A doctor is going to have one side of the idea, the vision, the problems, the issues, and a homeopath is going to have another side. So it's being able to use the two of them because it's going to only help your system to work stronger. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Absolutely not. And I think that's where, a lot of people and a lot of even
Mhm.
professionals, they in my opinion, that's where you fall short. Because
Mhm.
there isn't just one way. We need each other. We
Yeah,
need
we
all of
do.
it. And you need to find what pieces in which people you want on your health team.
Mhm.
And you might be called to nutrition, someone else might not be called to nutrition, but they might be called to something else. I mean, that's
Exactly.
you need to be open and find what are the pieces and who are the people that you need on your team, because not one person or one modality can be everything to everyone.
And I like what you said. It's the team. You have to have your team because you're going to work it. And I kind of feel like, especially when it comes to the natural side of things, we're gaining momentum. It's gotten a lot more accepted now than when I started. It's people are utilizing it better, I think, with their doctors, and doctors are now more open to having a, a community kind of work together kind of situation in that field. So I do feel like it's really come a long way in the last probably 10 years, more so. Like I've even had conversations with my son who's like, no, I'm a doctor. You got to do it this way. Very much like that way. But he's also open now to, all these other things that you need to do to be healthy. So it really is a team effort. I love that you use that word. Perfect. So back to, I don't know what got me off on that one. Eddie was good for the show today. We'll just put it that way. He got my mind thinking. Um, I feel like um, I got to go back to what I was saying. I got to go back to my thoughts now. So with your clientele, what is the kind of the duration? I know everybody's different, but is this something like if somebody went into, because I know in some respects people feel like if I go see a homeopath or if I go see a naturopath or there, I'm going to be there forever
Right.
because plants work slower than pharmaceutical works. So how does that, what would you say to that?
Well, I tell anyone, especially who's new to homeopathy and
Hmm.
hasn't used. So if we're going to work together on a constitutional level,
Hmm.
a realistic expectation is you have to commit to this for at least 6 months to a year.
Hmm.
And what that means is, you have the initial consultation, um, you get, recommended the remedy, you take the remedy, and then you'd meet with me again 4 to 6 weeks after you take the remedy. Then
Hmm.
we meet for an hour, assess what's changed, what hasn't changed,
Mhm.
what's new. Do we need to repeat the remedy? Do we need a new remedy? What is your state saying? And so that follow up will happen repeatedly for every 4 to 6 weeks for the first 6 months. And then some people, they come in with their chief complaint, that one
Mhm.
thing, this one particular thing, and it's better, or it's more tolerable to them.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they're like, you know what? I'm feeling really good. I'll let you know if things change. And maybe an event will happen in their life that suddenly that one particular thing is starting to get a little worse again.
Mhm.
Then they, can call me back up and we'll meet again and we'll go from there. Not
Mhm.
everyone is interested in diving deep. There's some people that just they have their one chief complaint, and that's fine.
Mhm.
People have to live the life the way that they want to live the life.
Mhm.
Then I have other clients who there's a continual healing that happens on the mental, emotional level, the physical level.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned, some things can come back, which is a beautiful thing because it means that we can clear them away for good.
Yeah.
And they are okay. And maybe we meet every 8 weeks. Maybe we don't need to meet every 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe we have a check-in every 2 months, every 2 to 3 months. There's some clients that they check in 4 times a year at the change of the seasons. Change of the seasons kind
Yeah.
of
Big.
they can really shake people up.
Yeah.
They check in the change of the season and see where do they need the most support and move on. It's individualized. It
Yeah.
really is individualized. But realistically, I tell people if you're going to work with a homeopath on a constitutional level, you
Mhm.
really need to make a commitment, for 6 to 12 months to really to see.
So you've used this word, and I'm sometimes I take for granted because I understand this stuff. But what do you mean by a constitutional level? What does that
Um,
mean?
that's what I was referring to, like those chronic states that we're in.
Okay.
We refer to that as a constitutional consultation
That's what I
versus the
said that.
acute, which is the, out of the blue,
Right. Right. Yeah.
so
Okay. Just want to make sure that everybody got that and didn't
yeah.
walk go, what did she
Thank
mean?
you, because the language just kind of
Well, that's
flows
something
in.
I'm becoming more aware of because I've been doing mediumship for so long. And now I kind of use verbiage like it's water. And people are like, what are you talking about? I take it for granted. So I'm trying not to do that. I'm becoming aware that I do that. So I feel like you've talked a lot about what homeopathy is. And if you guys have any questions, please put it in the chat. But what would be your golden nugget that you would like people to walk away with?
Oh, to the golden nugget is to be open and try it for yourself.
Mhm.
Be open to something different
Mhm.
and to try it for yourself. And just like all the other modalities, it isn't homeopathy that's going to fail. It's probably the homeopath that's going to fail you.
Mhm.
If, and there's a lot of us out there. So then go find one that works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very true statement. Like I already said, there's a lot of good and bad in all fields. So you do have to be wise in who you're picking. If you feel like it's not working, then you have the right to move on. So
And
definitely.
ask questions.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Ask questions, especially if you're new and you've never used homeopathy before. Ask
Mhm.
questions of the practitioner before you even meet with them. I
Mhm.
love when I get appointments scheduled and it's just for an informational phone call. I love talking with people and answering their
Mhm.
questions because
Mhm.
this is a different way of approaching health.
It absolutely is. And it's really one well worth learning about and learning or exploring because some of these problems that we've had, like, like the asthma that I had, where I was doing all kinds of stuff. I got allergy tested. I was in the emergency room at least once a year with breathing issues and I knew that I needed to do something different. And that's when I started my search. So you sometimes you need that extra help. You need someone who's able to guide you Yeah. So definitely, I agree with you. Well, thank you so much for being here and dealing with all that stuff that happened.
No
And
worries.
everybody and their questions and comments. It's been really nice. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for everyone being here.
Okay. If you guys have any questions, hi, Cassandra. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Now, if you're on YouTube and you put it in the chat here, it's not going to show up. But if you go into the feed on YouTube and put the questions there, we'll see it there. But on StreamYard, the feed for YouTube's doesn't stay. So do it actually on the video itself, and then we can get back to you on that. In Facebook, it will stay. So if you're on Facebook, go ahead and do it. And how do people get a hold of you?
They can reach me on my website, which is sourcehealinghome.com. They can send me an email through my website. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. Send me messages.
Okay, sounds good. All right, you guys. Thank you all for being here, and take care and have a safe and wonderful evening. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.